Alright everyone, we're back with another video battle report. This one is going to be my Knights of Blood versus Mark and his Orks. They're making their return to the table. We'll see how things go, if it's a triumphant return or not. And anyways, in my army, I have a squad of Devastators with a las cannon and 2 missile launchers. And they have a Razorback. I've got a Death Company accompanied by a Chaplain. They're in their own Razorback. I've got another Devastator squad, missile launcher, 2 missile launchers and a las cannon. They also have a Razorback. And then a 5-man assault squad with a flamer in a Razorback. 10-man assault squad, 2 melta-guns and a power fist. And a 10-man assault squad, 2 melta-guns and a power fist. They're joined by a priest with power sword and a librarian, both with jump packs. And then in reserve, I have 2 flamestorm ball predators and 1 assault cannon heavy bolter, storm bolter ball predator. Those 3 will all be outflanking. For Mark's army, he has chosen to reserve everything since I have first turn, and he has a war boss with an attack squig and power claw, heavy armor, cyborg body, all the good stuff. Big mech with a shock attack gun. 3 def dreads. 10 boys with 1 big shooter in a truck, ×4. And then Burna boys with 2 Burnas and 3 big mechs with custom mega blasters. He's got 3 squads of those. Squad of 10 bikes with knob with power claw. And 30 shooter boys with 3 big shooters, knob with power claw. And 30 Ard boys with slugga choppas, 3 big shooters and a knob with power claw. So that's that. Mark's going to roll to see if he can seize the initiative, and that's a 3, so no. So we'll be back at the end of we'll be back soon. Alright, back at the end of Knights of Blood turn 2. Since Mark reserved everything, I just made all my movements. All the Razorbacks moved up to midfield. Following closely behind them were all the jump pack squads. And then Devastators are hanging back in their respective buildings waiting for something to shoot at. And in turn 2 I got 1 Flamestorm Ball Predator, and it came in on my right and turbo boosted all the way up here. So that's that. Now I'm just waiting to see what the Orks bring in, and we'll be back at the end of Ork 2. Alright, and we are back at the end of Ork 2. He got very little in for reserves. He got 3 units of truck boys. 1 move flat out to get there. 1 move flat out there. He also got in a big mech, which moved up and ran into that building for some cover. And the last truck came in over here, and that is all he got in. So we will be back at the end of Knights of Blood turn 3. Alright, we're back at the end of Knights of Blood 3. It was a pretty productive round of shooting here. The Devastators opened up on the truck over here. They managed to stun it. The Razorback here opened up on it. Managed to immobilize it. But then the Flamestorm came through and wrecked it. And it got a crunch on the ramshackle table, so it's just wrecked, and the boys piled out there. Over here, his ball predator came in and wrecked that truck, killing 2 boys in the explosion when it got a kaboom on the ramshackle table. Then the Flamestorm killed 5 more boys who passed both their pinning test from the explosion and then passed leadership at the end of the phase. These Devastators here took out that truck there. The boys disembarked behind it. And here, the las cannon here managed to cause a wound, and the big mech failed his cover save and died. Instant death. And that's about all that happened in turn 3. So we'll see what happens in turn 4, or turn 3 for the Orks, when the rest of their reserves get a chance to come in. Alright, we're back at the end of Ork turn 3. He got in all of his reserves except for the War Boss and the War Bikes. The Ard Boys moved into the corner there. They took some pot shots at the Ball Predator and shook it. This mob of boys here moved out from behind their truck. They also took a pot shot at the side arc but didn't do anything. The Def Dread and Berna's and Mech Boys moved on there. They all took shots at the Flamestorm Ball Predator but did nothing. The Shooter Boys moved on and fired at my assault squad. They caused 10 wounds, but I made all but 3 saves and made all 3 feel no pain, so I lost nothing there. Over here, the Bernas moved on there, took shots at Razorback. Got no hits, but managed to lose 1 to Gets Hot. That squad over there also got 1 Gets Hot. The Def Dread here moved on and ran 2 inches. This Truck Boy squad moved up and disembarked there. They shot at, as well as the squad in the building there, and this squad here all combined fire to kill 4 Marines here, which I then lost, or failed morale, fell back 5 inches, and 1 member landed in the terrain. Well, 2 landed in the terrain, but 1 killed himself on a dangerous terrain test. And then over here, the other Flamer Burna Boys moved on. Them and the Def Dread both shot at the Flamestorm Ball Predator there. Again, they lost 1 Big Mech to the Gets Hot rule, and otherwise did nothing in shooting, but in assault they knocked off its weapon, immobilized it, and stunned it. So we'll be back at the end of Knights of Blood turn 4. Alright, in Knights of Blood turn 4, we blew up the Def Dread there with some shooting from the Devastators. These guys both failed to damage it. And then the Ball Predator managed to wreck that truck. This assault squad that was over here rallied and moved on over here and assaulted the 3 boys that were left from that exploded truck and wiped them out in assault. These guys disembarked, moved up, and flamered the unit that had gotten out of that truck, killing all but 4 of them, who fell back but only 3 inches, so I was still in assault range, and I assaulted them and wiped them out, consolidated back a little bit. Over here, the Devastators and both of these 2 Predators combined fire at that Def Dread, managing to shake it so it can't shoot next turn. Meanwhile, this Ball Predator over here just moved flat out over here, and just in case it popped smoke. And the assault squad here moved up and assaulted the Mob of Boys there. I won combat by 7, and I killed 8, he killed 1, so I won by 7. And then he failed 4 of his no retreat wound saves, and we piled in there. So we'll be back at the end of, and over here, this big Def Dread over here was still in base contact with that Ball Predator, and it managed to explode the Predator but caused no wounds to the surrounding squads. Alright, and we'll be back at the end of Ork 4 to see how that goes. Alright, we're back at the end of Ork 4, and he got the rest of his reserves in. So the War Bikes moved on there, the War Boss moved on there. Over here, this Def Dread moved up and fired at this squad, causing no casualties. Over here, this squad and the Bikes fired at these guys, but I made a flurry of armor saves and only lost the guy with the flamer. And then Berna's fired at this Razorback, and yet again another mech with a custom Mega Blaster killed himself with Gets Hot, and they caused no damage to the Razorback. This mob of Bernas fired their 2 custom Mega Blasters at the Death Company Razorback, but they were firing through the legs of the Def Dread. So both of them hit, both of them penned, and then I made both cover saves. And after that, the Def Dread and the War Boss joined into this melee here, and they wiped out the Priest and the Assault Squad. Well, the Librarian took 1 wound when he got Perils of the Warp trying to cast Unleash Rage and rolled boxcars. But then I killed 7 boys in the combat, but his war boss and Knob with Power Claw managed to kill 8 guys on their own. So I lost combat by a 3. Librarian made his morale check and we all piled in there. And other than that, I think these boys moved over a little bit over there, and that was it for turn 4. So we'll be back at the end of Knights of Blood turn 5. Alright, at the end of Knights of Blood 5, we moved over here. The Meltagun missed at the Death Dread there, but these Devastators here blew it up and killed actually one of my assault squad in the explosion. Over here, both Razorbacks, well actually, and that Razorback too, all 3 Razorbacks there fired on the boys, or the bikers. This Ball Predator fired on the bikers. We killed all but 2 in the Knob, who failed their leadership and fled off the table. This assault squad moved up and assaulted the Burnas that were in the train, killing all of them. And over here, the Death Company got out of their Razorback, moved in to join the assault there. The Power Weapon and one of the regular guy killed the War Boss. The Chaplain, the Librarian, and 1 regular Death Company managed to kill like 7 boys. And we caused a stunned and a shaken result on the Death Dread. Before the Librarian, the Chaplain, and then 1 of the Death Company were killed in return. The Razorback here shot at and fired at the Burna boys there, killing all but 1 mech boy who passed his leadership test. And over here, the Ball Predator moved up and flamestormed these, killing 6, who the remaining 4 then passed their leadership. And what wasn't killed from the boy squad in this combat over here also failed morale and fled off the table, and the Death Company piled in with the Death Dread. And that's the end of turn 5, and at that point we decided to call it, because it's getting pretty damn late, that's the main reason, but then it's, I think, also fairly obvious that the Knights are coming out pretty far ahead in this one. I think not getting them reserves early on really hurt the Orks in this battle, but I had a blast. Good game, Mark.
Good game.